of things came out after that event there. Talking about spirituality, how would, it's kind of a vague question still, but how can you use spirituality in terms of helping people going through mental health challenges? Because in society today, you know, I find a lot of young people and older people going through some challenges, you know, stress and so on, so on, so on. So, question we're asking, can we use spirituality as a tool to get out of that kind of hole? I just want to have some, so I want to bring it to the table.
I mean, I just articulate my own way, because that was what they've done. Just put me in
I've got I feel like I need to speak on this one. Because I'm also a counsellor, so I do help people with mental health, depression, anxiety, psychosis and stuff, and even within my family, family members had psychosis, drug-induced psychosis, which I've had to help him through. So there's too many labels for a start.
So yes, they like to label, you know, this stuff with as if it's a disease, as if there's something wrong, etc. And actually, there's nothing wrong. We are multi-dimensional beings, and if we're connecting with spirit and we can hear spirit, so they say if you've got psychosis or if you've got schizophrenia, you're mad. No, you're not mad. You just got that good connection with source and spirit and ancestors, and then they give you drugs to try and shut it down. And unfortunately, for some, because they're so, maybe their energy field is quite toxic and quite negative, they may attract the negative energies, entities, ancestors out there, and they will tell them wicked things, etc., because they need healing. Okay, and because where you've got good humans, bad humans, you've also got good spirits, bad spirits, etc. Okay, so this is what is happening. So mental health, having a spiritual approach with it really will help, really does help, and it's about healing the different essence of our souls where there's been trauma, where there's been abuse and things like that, which creates a negative space within the body. The body remembers sometimes where the mind doesn't remember. There's a lot, it's quite complex, you know. But yeah, the labels that they give, nah, I'm not for that at all. I saw a list of the different traits of Asperger's in a woman, and I was reading through that list and I was like, ooh, it's a good job I wasn't diagnosed when I was a kid, because I saw so many things on that list that pertained to me, and I ain't mad. There's nothing wrong with us. It's just that so many of us are very connected to spirit, and they don't want us to know this. They don't want us to have that power, to know that we have that power within us. Absolutely, absolutely.
I don't mind. Yeah, go on, you go ahead. Yeah? You'll add something. All right. It's a difficult one when it comes to mental health, because most people are suffering on a slight version of mental health. Not appreciated, but most people aren't winning the arguments they're having within their mind. Most of the time, whenever we're doing this thing, it's really to clear out the discussions that you're having within your head. When we say the mind is a place, it's because when some people ask you about certain things, there's some places you don't want to go in your head. Someone asks you a question, I don't want to go there. Suggesting that there's thoughts in your head that you're scared to embrace. Voices and conversations that you're scared to have within your head, within yourself. Yeah, you're trying to motivate yourself, and a voice is telling you, you can't do that, you can't do this, all those kind of things. Which is unfortunately, education, because they do a great big effort of programming you as a child to what they think you should be capable of, or what they want you to be capable of. So often, we classify as a court system. Okay? You are the judge, and you have one voice on your side, which is all your education, telling you you should do it this way, you should follow the laws, and all that thing. And on the other side, you have your ancestors, we say, which is your defense. Now, if you don't believe in your ancestors, it's a problem because the prosecution wins the case every time. Yeah? Don't argue, you just take what they say. And the problem is, as you as the person, you're the one who creates the emotion that happens next. You generate all your emotions. So essentially, once you've lost a case in your head, your body responds by creating the emotion to justify that thought. They say that the body is the theater to the mind. So essentially, whatever the mind thinks, the body reflects. So if you're in a situation where a thought, someone's introduced a thought to you like a virus, and that thought is now dominating all of your mind, you can have a situation where if you can't think of a solution out of that thought, you go into a state of depression. You let that thought then take over you, and then that thought decides what you can do and what you can't do. Essentially, all of us, all the time, every minute of the day, we're writing a program to give us actions to what we should do. That's why you talk to other people, and they give you better ideas so you can build a better program to enable you to navigate out of whatever thought that you have. So we have a lot of situations with mental health where if you don't have much advice or experience or an elder to go to or someone who you can share how you feel and offload it, you're stuck with the negative thought, basically kicking your head in from inside, putting you in all emotional states, putting you in a state of dejection towards yourself, and you not being able to actually fight your way out of your own head. Yeah? This is why, again, we speak of African spirituality or spirituality where you will work with the ancestors in your mind to find you solutions in order that you can take that battle back into your head and find a way to defeat that thought so that you are now at peace. That's why you can speak to certain people and they change the picture, because when I say we think in pictures, most people, if you ask them what's wrong with them, you're better to ask them what are they seeing in their mind? What picture are they looking at? What story do they believe their life actually is? And once they can tell you the story of what their life is, you can see where you can say, oh, well, no, it's not that bad. You could do this, you can do that. Oh, really? And you see their spirit picks up because all of a sudden you've given them a clue how they can work their way out of that thought and work themselves into the piece of the picture. If you've got a negative picture towards yourself or a negative story towards yourself, you start to live as that picture. You need someone to bring you out of your own darkness. Yeah? As regards to God and the God in the sky, I don't know, it's one of those, yeah, I'll give it to, no, but that one is a crazy one because if you, see, unfortunately, we only know what we've been told. So whenever they speak of the sun, okay, these guys back in the day only used to worship the sun because it took them out of darkness. So many names you'll have for the sun. One used to be called Horus, where you get the word horizon from. Yeah, Horus is rising in the sky. And another one, this Isis, before they essentially got to Jesus. Yeah, which was initially, Jesus came after the Mithras religion, when the Romans essentially used to worship the sun. So when they talk about the 12 hours of the day, they said that Horus used to take 12 steps around the sky. And when it was at the most high, which was 12 noon, that's where you get the term most high from. What they don't tell you is the Arabs used to call the moon sin. So when we say this God, Jesus saved us from sin, he saved us from the darkness. So they were basically working on some whole light sun story, and then they converted it into these other stories and these other Bibles. But essentially, everything they do is based on the movement of the sun. Hence, the holy day is Sunday. That's where they've always been, and we've always been in a situation where we're worshiping ideas. We're never really dealing with ourselves. Why they say he's the Son of God is because no one's ever seen the sun. They've only seen the disk in the sky, which is the sun, and they said God is unknowable because no one can see 93 million miles away and see something. You can only ever see the disk in the sky. So again, they used that whole basis to lock us in a storyline, which meant that we never asked questions of ourselves. We only just studied the story and the versions that they gave us. If you go back in history, you start to find out all these histories and when these stories were created, just to keep you mentally occupied. Okay? You inside yourself is the origin. If you want to look for the God, the creator, you look within yourself, not in some hypothetical way and what have you, but if you're going to speak, who creates that? If you see something in your mind, who creates that? If you're going to walk, who creates that? Tell me, who doesn't create everything that you do but yourself? When you're about to say something, who creates that? Yeah? You create absolutely everything you do, but you give the power to something else. Yeah? Does Jesus tell you what to think, or do you have to have a conversation within your first? Is everyone talking to a religion when they're having a conversation? No. Who would have the time to do all of that? So this is the thing. The power has always been there within you. You've always had access to it. But the fact is they've had to have you focus outside so that they can control the story and they can put you down so you don't actually look up. Yeah? Why do you close your eyes to pray if the God is in the sky? You automatically know that it's inside you, hence you close your eyes. So look for it. Okay? So as regards as God and all that thing is concerned, yeah, the ancestors knew that it was always you. And that's why they speak of other dimensions, other places, past lives, things like that. Take you beyond this story. Because they will talk about reincarnation because they know you're just an avatar, your body, and your consciousness is the story that you're using to play out this story that you're in right now. The real you has always been something else. The reason why most of us are upset is because we don't like the story we're in. Yeah, and we're trying to fix, what do you say? You're trying to fix three things. Your body, your clothes, and the story that you're in. And you spend your whole life trying to work out how to deal with that. Who you are and what you are, unfortunately. The rest, but you're the one who's having the experience of those things. Not those things are you. Okay? All right, thank you.
Okay, so we'll have one more question before we go to a break. Okay, well, two more questions, two very quick questions, then we're going to go for a break so we can stretch our legs. And we also have somebody who's going to play some music for us. But before that, please, sister, introduce yourself.
Hello there, good evening, everyone. My name's Lorraine. Thank you very much, panel, for being with us tonight. All of you up there, I'm just going to say thank you, because everything that you've said is exactly what I personally have gone through myself. As a child growing up in this society, I've always felt a little bit, like I don't fit in with my own people. You know, it could be on the train or, just at work, and there doesn't have to be a word said. You just look at each other, and it's like instantly you have that connection and you know what the other one is thinking. I didn't understand, the gentleman here, the priest is, did the greeting and opened up for us today. And we do that, but I just didn't put any thought into, well, why do we do that? Why do we bless the spirits? Do you know what I mean? We just see our parents do it. For me, I did all the straight hair, trying to fit in. And then, as you say, that voice inside you was always there saying to me, this is not what you should be doing. This is not you. But again, you ignore it because you just think that you need to fit in. And with trying to fit in, the more I was, coming away from it. Anyway, eventually I decided I'm just going to grow my hair and I don't care about work and what they think. This is me. Going through that process, that was like an awakening for me. And like this lady said here, that just started the journey for me as to who I am. Yeah? By doing and changing the outer, that made me realize there was much, much more that I needed to tap into. So everything that you said there in terms of realizing that the battle that you have has never been about, the devil and this God. The battle has always been from within you, finding out who you are. And through that and learning and seeing that, the Holy Spirit and the Holy Trinity and things like that, meaning the family, it was like, oh my God, they've sold me a lie. So through that, that's just released me. And, hearing you say, well, people thought I was mad. To some of my family, if I started speaking, they would have thought, oh my God, Lorena's gone mad. Yeah, because for me, I believe that God is me. I am God. And all of us here are gods and goddesses. And we just need to realize that, yeah, and embrace it. And I'm still on that journey of listening and hearing that inner voice and having that clarity of hearing that. So my journey is still continuing. But it makes me happy to hear that I'm not alone as to where I am in that journey. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you for sharing that. We're just going to have one more. I don't know if it's a question or a sharing, but please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Hida. So my question is about... Sorry, I'm looking at Yvonne because she's my counselor. I go to her for counselling. So my question is around motherhood and how to introduce children in a spiritual way so it's personal to them. And I thought my point is that a lot of mums are running to religion, especially mothers of sons, because they just feel like their sons need a guide. And when you send them to school, they put all these labels on them, like you said. I don't know, they call them difficult. When they're not difficult, they're just not responding to what you've spent how long in uni learning, that children are individuals. So I guess my question is, how do I make sure his spirit is still high and send him into a systematic environment?
Thank you for sharing that, Zaz. I know it's very personal, but very powerful. But we are all family here. I don't know if anybody has any suggestions or if it's something you want to think about. Yeah?
There's a thing that we don't appreciate when a child is born and they speak in their language, their whatever, Google, Garu, and all that kind of thing. People have been taught to sort of get the child out of that phase as quick as possible. But what that child is actually doing is communicating in their own original language, their language from the place that they came from. They say that we're born on this earth, which means we originated somewhere else. And wherever we originated from, we have a language. Our body doesn't speak in English. Our body translates English into our own language, and then our body works in our own personal individual language. There's a friend of mine, a lady in the class, and she had a scenario where she learned to speak her own language, because that's one of the things we get you to do, to learn to speak your own original language. So you can communicate with your body in the language that it was meant to be communicated in. English, unfortunately, creates problems within a child because the child has to shut down who they are in order to learn that language. When the child can see things and spirits and stuff like that, as soon as they learn English or start to learn English, they lose the ability to do so, because the language you speak describes the images you see. And if you see an image and you haven't got a name for that image, eventually you'll stop seeing that image. Anyhow, going back to that story, when the lady learned how to speak her language, she asked in her head, what's the real name for her son? And she heard it, and she called the son by the name, and the son looked up because he recognized the language. Then she said, what is the word for lay down? And she got it in her head. Then she said to the boy, in the language, lay in that word. And the third time, the boy laid down. And then he said, lay down afterwards. She didn't say the word in English, but he heard it and realized that was it. The connection is in their language. As soon as they come and start learning to read and write and stuff like that, If any of you read the book Water and Spirit, it speaks about when they were afraid that the boy wouldn't be able to do the ritual because he's learned to speak English. And what happened was, or French or whatever the language is, and when you learn to speak in another language foreign from to your own, your mind shuts down, your ability to travel into different worlds within yourself. It's not
just that
pretense.
it's just, yeah.
The thing is, once you learn to speak to him like that and keep him to retain that, he can still see things and be able to live in things where, again, the English language shuts his ability to do that. So you learn to speak that and speak it with him, and before you know, both of you will have that in common. You keep that going so he retains that ability to access deeper parts of himself later on. It's a shame. I always say if the kids were taught to speak to their ancestors all the way through their lives, they wouldn't have the issues that they have now. They would have a guidance with them all the time, and they wouldn't take on the education, which is their real parenting, because we just look after the kids, but they have them 8 hours of the day, and they fill their head up with whatever thoughts and stories and lies and what have you that they choose. So we're constantly in that situation. So the problem that you have more often than not, keep the child in his language, keep him in that spiritual state. Of course he will learn English and all that, but always refer to that as a second language, because it's a second language, it's not our first language. And when we think in that language, we do a great disservice to ourselves. We don't appreciate it because that's all we know. But as soon as you learn to do, there's certain words in different languages, people say, we don't have an English equivalent for that. So as soon as they say that, you can't see what they're trying to say anymore, because you can only see. So if you can retain that, and if we all kept that going, you would find that we could keep that child still locked into their spiritual self, instead of them being cut off from that and then become lost in someone else's language belief system. Okay? All right.
What I would also add is to allow him to teach you, because our children are much closer to source than we are, because we've been conditioned and brainwashed, and it's been beaten out of us, all sorts of stuff, and we have to try and get back there. It's a long journey back. But how old is he again? 6. So he's still really close to source. So get him to teach you and ask him what's going on for him, and what's he hearing, what's he seeing, and really engage in that. You know, the things I know now, I wish I knew it when my children were little, because when I look back now, I see so many little phenomenon things that they used to come out with and say, and my son had an imaginary friend, and I kind of didn't really acknowledge that. That was his guide. Do you know what I mean? So allow him to really talk about his spiritual experiences, because he's definitely experiencing them, and empower him that he has got this. And the school, that's kind of like another issue, and let him recognize that they will try and shut him down. They see him, they know who he is, yeah, and they're like gatekeepers. And when they see these special black children, especially the boys, they will try and beat their confidence out of them. They will try and shut them down. So really nurture your son holistically so that he can cope in that hostile environment.
The names we get given, even those which we don't choose, have a certain influence on our lives and how we work through our life purpose. So it's about you giving your child that sense of support, that even if you're not there, uncle is there, or someone else is there, and all these ancestors are there, so that he never feels alone. Because what I've got, and obviously there must be more, and we could talk more on that, but the first most important thing is there's this sense of loneliness, because you're not physically present. So when you give him that power to have, that sense of still seeing uncle, because it's still existing in the mind, you never feel alone, because at any point in time, uncle can be there. Yes, and this kind of goes back to the questions that I didn't get a chance to finish because I know we have to break, is mental health. Yeah. Because, you know, what we call mental health, if you heard how everyone shared their stories, could you all see similarities between some of the stories? How the two sisters came in from a certain mental position. 1 minute they were telling them they were mad. But really what we're talking about in terms of mentalism, the very first conception, I don't know if anyone here is familiar with the 7 universal principles which were developed in ancient Egypt. Most of you would know one of the most famous modifications, the law of attraction, right? Now, there are 7 laws. The very first one is the law of mentalism, which says that everything is a mental construct. Let's look at this chair here. The person who made this chair saw the shape of the chair, did they not? And then we made the chair, and we see the physical aspect of the chair here. But where did that original image come from? That means the original image exists somewhere else. So what you might call your mind, when you really start to work with it, you realize it's many dimensions. Yeah? The other day, there's this science report that's come there saying scientists are now trying to open portals to go into parallel universes. So that means there may be, God knows, millions of you living different lives. You know, when you make a decision, you said yes to something and you said no to the other thing. There's another you doing that no somewhere else. So when we talk about mentalism, it's about how well do we manage the degree of our minds and the way our minds work. And from what everybody said, as you can see, we're all connected in a certain way. When those stories were being shared, mental conflict between the two sisters, Edison's from his ancestor, mine from my ancestor. So the final question you ask, who's God? God is all of us, because we're just a connected mind. This is why we share so much. Yeah? So hopefully that helps.
Wow. I really wish we had more time. However, we're going to have a short break now. But firstly, I just want to pass over to my sister Joy, who would like to introduce somebody to play some music for us.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, everyone. This is Sekuru Makamanzi. Basically, we're from Zimbabwe. And obviously, I'm sure you've heard there's different ways of connecting to our ancestors depending on where we come from. So in Zimbabwe, when we're connecting to our ancestors, there's music that's played and it's called mbira. And then we have people like this lovely legend from Zimbabwe. They help us and teach us on how to connect with our ancestors through music and teaching us. So I'd like to introduce you to Sekuru Makamanzi. And you'll be playing mbira, which is the music that we use to connect with our ancestors. Thank you.
absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. That was absolutely beautiful. How did you find that? That light in the spirit a little bit? Because as an empath, I was kind of feeling a little bit. So that kind of helped me a little bit to release a bit. So come and stretch your legs for 15 minutes and get yourself some water, get some fresh air, and we'll come back for the second half, which will be a little bit shorter than the first half, but please do come back.